The F1 world has been pretty crazy over the past few months. With rule changes due to COVID, a crazy race between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen for the top spot, and plenty of bickering between the champion challenger, it's easy to forget that there's plenty going on besides all that too. Like for example, Daniel Ricciardo getting knocked out in Turkey in both stunning and disastrous fashion. Let's take a closer look at that and more right now. Daniel Ricciardo knocked out early. Daniel's early exit in qualifying was a huge blow for the driver, and one that could not have come at a more inopportune time for the man. Daniel is coming off of arguably his best 2 races of the season, and the driver's blaming his tires for the trouble. It's extremely rare for a driver like Daniel to get knocked out in the way that he did, and so it was a bit of a shock to see for many. But was he able to overcome his unfortunate start in the Grand Prix itself? Daniel's poor luck was not to be overcome in Turkey, with the driver finishing 13th and gaining no points throughout the event. Standing at 8th, this was a tough stroke of misfortune, as well as a potential tactical error for the driver and his team, and one that explains that despite some strong races this season, he's struggling to keep up with the pack. The McLaren driver started at the 15th position for the day, and was just not really able to pick up any speed in the Grand Prix, unlike Hamilton, who was able to make the most out of a dreadful starting position. It looks like it's back to the drawing board for McLaren, who have yet another tough pill to swallow after all the excitement of some beautiful racing by Ricciardo leaves the room. Valtteri Bottas dazzles in a statement win. Valtteri Bottas has had to deal with a somewhat uncomfortable position this season. He has struggled with Mercedes for some time, causing the team to look elsewhere next season for a driver. Rather than taking this lying down and finishing the season quietly, Bottas has had a quietly great season since the decision, culminating in a big win in Turkey. Valtteri ran an almost perfect race, which was made even more impressive considering the last time he took to the track, where he had a horrible race and finished 14th overall. With his first win in over a year, Valtteri could be in for a major resurgence next season, and could be a driver to look out for after splitting with Mercedes. Verstappen maintains the lead. Max Verstappen didn't get up in the morning for second-place finishes, but he has to feel pretty good about what happened in Turkey. Doubtfully so, even when you take into consideration how well prepared Mercedes was for the race. I mean, just look at how Bottas dominated the event for proof of that. With 6 races left to go in the F1 season, Verstappen heads to Austin, Texas with a 6-point advantage on rival Lewis Hamilton, something that could prove to be the difference heading forward. Max would have probably liked to have taken Hamilton's 10th place grid penalty and left with a win, but a second-place finish will do just fine, I'm sure, for the Red Bull driver. Why does Charles Leclerc leave Turkey full of regret? Charles Leclerc and his team seemed like they may have been able to snatch an unlikely victory in Turkey, that is, until everything went wrong. The driver ended 4th after a risky play to attempt to finish the race without stopping, something that not only didn't work, but also cost him a podium position. After a hot start and some solid handling in slippery conditions, I'm sure it's hard for Charles and his team to smile after narrowly missing a top 3 finish, but it was still a good race and nothing to be ashamed of. After the dust settles and the team comes to terms with their mistake, I'm sure they'll look back at this race as something to build on. What was Fernando Alonso's devastating day? There were quite a few tough moments in Turkey, but perhaps none more unfortunate than the day that Fernando Alonso had. The driver came out with a statement run in qualifying, with his first top 5 finish since 2014, just for none of that to matter just seconds after the race began. Alonso made contact with Pierre Gasly at turn 1 and was sent spinning down the field, something he would not be able to overcome on the day. Fernando made one last push to gain ground, but clumsily collided with another car to earn a penalty and essentially any momentum he was able to gain. The 6th-place finish ended a streak for the driver of finishing a Grand Prix of points. Sebastian Vettel gambles and loses. Sebastian Vettel was riding a pretty good hot streak, entering into his last race, and the performance there shows how small the margin of error is in Formula 1. While Sebastian started out strong, a decision to fit slick tires when leaving the pits immediately bit him in the rear end, and he knew it. The 4-time champ could be heard saying, it's not working, seconds after arriving back on the tracks. After being unable to keep his car pointed forward with how bad the tires were operating, he was forced to pit once again, which essentially ended his night pretty early on. The whole thing is a bummer, but those kind of split-second decisions that we applaud when they work sometimes just don't. And when they don't, it can spell disaster for any driver, no matter how skilled or experienced. Better luck next time, Sebastian. Red Bull leaves with their heads held high. For only the 2nd time all season, 2 Red Bull drivers hit the podium this weekend in Turkey. Sergio Perez followed Max Verstappen and finished in in the top 3, helping keep Red Bull alive in the Constructors' Championship. It seems somewhat unlikely that Red Bull will catch Mercedes, but it's been a crazy season and it's hard to make any sort of prediction this year. Sergio Perez's dominance in Turkey continues yet again, and is a key reason that Red Bull will have a lot to think about in terms of strategy, as they try to secure Verstappen's lead while simultaneously gauging their chances at the Constructors' Championship. Lewis Hamilton's rally isn't enough. Lewis Hamilton started the race outside of the top 10 due to an engine penalty that could have not been easy to handle, especially as it cost Hamilton his championship lead, one that he held for almost no time at all. Finishing in 5th place after having to endure the penalty isn't bad by any means, but he really needed a top 3 finish to keep his lead secured. Worst of all is that, along with Bottas, this track clearly favored Mercedes, and you would be hard-pressed to find anyone that would disagree that Hamilton looked like the best driver on the day, and he would have almost certainly won the race going away had things been different. Mercedes knew, however, that this engine change had to come sooner rather than later, and so now they will just have to hope that some magic from Hamilton can win them their closest championship in years. What about McLaren's progress? Okay, enough rating on the parade of McLaren. It's time to look at all the progress that the team has made, and the Turkish Grand Prix is a great place to start. McLaren have come a mighty far way now that a 7th place finish is seen as a disappointment, but at the same time, McLaren's not going to be impressed by moral victories any longer. Lando Norris, who almost took the top spot in Italy only to be outmaneuvered by Lewis Hamilton, represented the best that McLaren had on the day, but even a very disappointing performance by Ricciardo almost ended with points for the brand. They must be careful though, since Ferrari are nipping at their heels, but things still look good for the brand even after an underwhelming display in Turkey. It will be interesting to see how they recover from this stumble and if they can maintain their heightened standards going forward. The track surface impresses. Last time that the drivers took to race in the Turkish Grand Prix, there was some real issues with the track surface, a memory that I'm sure most of the drivers remembered entering into this year's race. The blame came in that the track had just recently been resurfaced prior to the race last year, resulting in worse grip for the drivers. This year, however, everything went pretty smoothly, and any and all track issues were the result of team error and not the track itself. This was great news, since the track has historically been one of the most fun to watch, and this year was no different, with some great storylines and strategic moves playing out for fans. Here's hoping that the final 6 races of the season hold up as well as the Turkish Grand Prix did. And that's our video for today. What a wild time it was at the Turkish Grand Prix this year, huh? We hope you enjoyed watching, and if you did, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more F1 videos, as well as a whole lot more. See you later.